Well, thank you very much, everyone on the call for joining us and taking time out of your evening to learn about the Lake Drive Functional Assessment Project that the Town of Georgina is undertaking. My name is Ryan Post. I'm the project manager with the Town of Georgina. And with us, we have the consultant that the town has retained for this project, WSP. And I'll let them introduce them. And I'll start with Justin, just because I can see your cameras on.
Thanks, Ryan. So I'm Justin Jones. I'm the engagement lead for this assignment. So I've been tasked with putting together all of the different ways that we're going to be conversing with the community. I'll turn it over to my colleague Helia, and then we'll flip it over to Olivia.
Thanks, Justin. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our session today. My name is Helia Ogabi. I'm a transportation planner within WSP and very happy to work on this project. I'll be working on the consultation and engagement part of this project. And with that, I leave it to Olivia to introduce herself.
Thanks, Helia. Good evening, everyone. My name is Olivia Falcone. I am a transportation planner at WSP. I am the project coordinator and the EA specialist for this study. I'm very excited to be here at the workshop to discuss this amazing project with you all tonight.
Thank you very much. So we have maybe about a half hour, 40-minute presentation. Then we'll have Q&A after, questions and answers after that. And for the presentation, I'll provide a high-level overview of the introduction and a bit of the study area. Then I'll turn over to WSP and Olivia and Helia to get into the context of the project and all the fun and exciting things associated with it. So next slide, please. So just to build on what I just mentioned, for the agenda, do a land acknowledgement, purpose of the study, looking at the and then after that, I'll turn over to Olivia and looking at the study schedule, existing policies and previous studies for additional context, and then look at best practices, existing conditions, and use that background, that framework to start exploring alternatives and assessment methodologies, and then following discussions and next steps. Next slide, please. Thank you. So for the land acknowledgement, the Town of Georgina recognizes and acknowledges that we are on the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the William Treaties First Nation and other Indigenous peoples. And on behalf of Mayor and Council, we would like to thank them for sharing this land. We would also like to acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island, First Nations, as our close neighbor and friend, one with which we strive to build a cooperative and a respectful relationship. We also recognize the unique relationship that the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. Next slide, please. So just going to briefly touch base on the purpose of the study. So Lake Drive is a popular corridor in the Town of Georgina, attracting tourists, cyclists, and pedestrians who use it for both as leisure and also for community. It has great views of Lake Simcoe and access to beaches and parks. It's home to local residents and also seasonal owners and visitors. However, with increasing development and more vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists wanting to use the road, there's been an increasing demand to rethink the design of the road. So therefore, the purpose of the study is to determine the best way to make Lake Drive and also Hedgerow safer and functional for all users. Next slide. And just briefly on the study area. So this project is looking at the whole of Lake Drive and also Hedgerow, so north and south, west, east, and also Hedgerow. And it covers a wide range of land uses and land use contexts and road contexts. There are residential areas, adjacent areas to the shoreline, public parks through Jackson Points and Hedge Road. Given the unique characteristics that we find when we drive from north to south and also to the east there, the project is divided into 3 sections grouped on similar road and land use contexts. And it's also important to note that we're not just looking at the popular tourist sites and beaches, but the whole corridor. And given their unique characteristics, and we recognize that it's not a one-size-fits-all, these sections will be looked at independently based on these unique characteristics. And I want to make it I want to point out quite clearly that this study will focus exclusively on the existing edge-to-edge pavement configuration that will not require widening or any other additional elements outside the existing paved surface. So just think of that existing pavement context in that area and not looking at anything outside of it. Next slide. And this is where I turn it over to Olivia in WSP. So thank you very much.
Thanks,
I'll turn
Ryan.
off my video and mute myself.
So, study schedule. This study is exempt from the municipal class environmental assessment study process. However, due to the length and the complexity of the corridor, the town is choosing to carry this study out to generally follow the Schedule B process under the MCEA. And that is being done in order to take a more fulsome and comprehensive approach to the decision-making process. So phase one of this project started off with gathering existing conditions information on the study area and talking to local stakeholders and council and developing a list of problems and opportunities. We are now on the cusp of phase 2 and 3, where we are looking at potential alternatives for the study. So this study has an enhanced consultation program because feedback from the public, from stakeholders, and from counselors is important to the success of the study. So we have conducted our first round of engagement to publicize the project with agencies, counselors, and stakeholders, and to gain initial feedback on the existing conditions and the vision of the corridor. Now, through the summer months, we are hosting a few engagement events, including this workshop, as well as a few beach pop-ups that are upcoming. Our final round of engagement will be in the fall, where we will present our preferred alternatives and present to council later on. So as I noted, we have completed an inventory of the existing conditions, and that actually includes looking at existing policy frameworks as well. These help guide the decision-making process for the study. So the policy documents that we've reviewed include provincial policy documents, such as the provincial policy statement and the Greenbelt Plan, regional documents such as the York Region Official Plan and Transportation Master Plan, as well as the lake-to-lake cycling route and walking trail. We've also dove into town policy plans, including the Active Trails Master Plan. By reviewing these documents, we gain a better understanding of the context of the study area and what is being planned in the future. I will now pass it on to my colleague, Halia, who will talk about best practices.
Thanks so much, Olivia. Okay, great. So we want to talk about best practices and how we want to integrate those best practices in this project. So as part of the best practices, we're looking at complete streets and Vision Zero best practice design guides. Next slide, please. So for the complete streets design guide, we're looking at the shift from traditional approach for road design where we're primarily looking and focusing on motor vehicles. So when it comes to complete streets, we're looking at an approach that we're equitably considering the needs for all road users, and that we recognize the importance of streets, and we're not looking at streets as channels of transportation and mobility, depending on their context. But also we're looking at streets as a significant element for public realm. So for this project specifically, we're going to look at complete streets design guides as a general guideline for improving the safety and user experience. As well, we're going to look at the context of each corridor and section of the study area and understand the speed, the traffic, the mobility, and making sure we are integrating all necessary elements in the design guide. We understand that the Lake Drive is a combination of residential, recreational, vehicle, and cyclists and pedestrian, and it's used by vehicles, cyclists, and pedestrians. So we want to make sure that we improve the experience for all road users. And we understand that currently Lake Drive is mainly designed for vehicles with little design consideration for other users. Next slide, please. The second best practice that we are going to integrate in this project is the Vision Zero initiative. A simple and clear goal for Vision Zero is 0 fatalities or serious injuries on roadways, creating the conditions where no loss of life is seen as an acceptable trade-off for mobility. We're focusing on design improvements to address safety concerns and account for potential human errors. As part of the Vision Zero initiative, we're going to address safety issues for the most vulnerable users of the road and transportation system, which are pedestrians, school children, older adults, and cyclists. And we understand that all users and designers have a shared responsibility in preventing accidents. So with that, I'll pass it on to Olivia to talk about existing conditions.
Thanks, Helia. So the study area for this project is lengthy. As a result of that, the land use of the roadway changes and varies when you travel from one end of the study area to the other end. Throughout the study area, there are accesses to Lake Simcoe, waterfront parks, and amenities. The roadway typology varies between rural and suburban depending on where you're in the study area. And there are generally residential properties along the roadway, although there are also some commercial properties that front onto Lake Drive and Hedge Road, such as in Jackson Point. Lake Drive Road is designated as a local road under the town's official plan. Local roads are designed to serve residential neighborhoods and other non-major traffic generating areas, provide land access to abutting properties, and have a right-of-way width of 20 meters. Metro Road, which is a regional road, parallels Lake Drive through the whole study area, as well as the Queensway and Black River Road. In terms of the general roadway condition, oftentimes along the study area, the right-of-way width seems much narrower than 20 meters. The image on the bottom of the slide shows the roadway where the pavement and the road is approximately 7 meters in width, with hedges on either side that obstruct the view down the road. This severely reduces stopping sight distances of vehicles, which should be generally between 50 meters to 65 meters. This map shows the overall active transportation network in the study area. At present, Lake Drive is signed as a shared route and does not have a dedicated cycling facility that is separated from vehicular traffic. Previous public and stakeholder input provided in the past as part of the Trails and Active Transportation Master Plan have indicated a strong demand and priority for a formal pedestrian and cycling facility along Lake Drive, particularly during the peak summer months. As a result of that master plan, 2 design options were put forward for consideration. And these are convert part of Lake Drive from a 2-way to a 1-way road for motorists from June through to October, and to convert the extra lane into a separated pedestrian and cycling facility on the side that abuts Lake Simcoe. This is also coupled with reducing speed limits along the segment and implementing sharrows to indicate shared space between the cyclists and motorists. So those are the 2 options that were put forward for further consideration. So Lake Drive travels through, again, different communities within the town. And a one-size-fits-all approach would not work here because we have to look more contextually and more localized at each section. As such, the study area has been divided into 3 sections, and these are based on their character and their context. So now we're going to go into a bit more detail on each section. To go through each section, and we'll have we'll go through each section. So section 1 is located in wards 1 and 3 and runs through Keswick. In this section, Lake Drive is mainly residential on both sides, where lakefront properties are fully on the lake side. There's limited beachfront and/or parks here, but there are some accesses to boat launch sites and marinas. There are some sections of Lake Drive where it is hilly here, but overall, this does see less seasonal tourism traffic. Section 2 extends from along Ward 3 into Ward 4 and generally has residential properties on the south side and beach front on the north side, though there are a few sections where there are lakefront properties on the north side of Lake Drive. The terrain here is generally flat but very curvy with limited sightlines. There is also access to high traffic beaches and public parks in this area, with the most popular ones being De La Salle and Willow Beach. So this section sees a much higher number of seasonal tourism and seasonal traffic. Finally, section 3 is all within Ward 4. So in this section, Lake Drive extends through Jackson's Point, which is one of the only areas with a sidewalk. And it transitions to Hedge Road, which has property access from both north and south sides or private beaches on the north side. This is also where there's access to Briars Resort and Golf Club, as well as Sybil's Point. There is a narrow bridge over Black River along the stretch, and that's where it goes down to one lane of traffic, so only one vehicle can pass the bridge at a time. The roadway typology in this section is reasonably flat and maintains a straight terrain. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Helia to discuss the potential alternatives.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Olivia. Okay, so here in this section, we want to talk about potential elements of alternatives that the project team identified and how these elements can be grouped together to introduce a different future for Lake Drive and Hedge Road. Next slide, please. So here, based on the problem and opportunities we identified in the first few phases of the project, we tried to identify potential alternatives that would functionally fit within the existing right-of-way and trying to think how we can improve the status quo of the road and transportation system with introducing these alternatives. As you can see here, we tried to group the alternatives into 3 groups. The groups are lane arrangements, active transportation, and traffic calming and safety. The ultimate goal for these alternatives is to first make sure they're practical for the existing right-of-way, and then to make sure we are providing a safer, more functional and livable place for all residents and the road users. These alternatives do not include any element outside the existing right-of-way, as I mentioned. And we try to group them as we show in the next slides. We'll go through them in more detail. We are trying to thoroughly evaluate all options. We're also including a do nothing option, which means just carrying forward with the existing conditions. And we're trying to ensure that we make the best decision for the safety and function of the road, and trying to improve the user experience. So in the next slides, we're going to demonstrate an example of each alternative, and then we have cross sections that show how we grouped the alternatives together. So for the first group, we want to go through the lane arrangements. I start from the top left corner. So we have the do nothing option, which means 2-lane vehicle traffic throughout the study area. Next one is a one-way option, which can be coupled with other active transportation alternatives. We have alternating one-way, road closure, and advisory lane. So what advisory lanes are? Advisory lanes are defined as a preferred space for cyclists and motorists to operate on a narrow street that would otherwise be shared, that could, act as a shared roadway. Roads with advisory bike lanes accommodate and provide, a prioritized space for a cyclist with almost little widening of the paved roadway surface. Next slide, please. The next group of potential alternatives are active transportation alternatives that can be coupled with mostly one-way vehicle traffic, but they can also fit in with the two-lane vehicle traffic. So starting from the top, so we have the do-nothing option, which is basically the signed route, and keeping the status quo. The next option is multi-use pathways, which can these pathways can be used by cyclists and pedestrian, and are typically shared roadways between these two road users. We then have the paved shoulders, bike lanes, sidewalks, shared roads or sharrows, and then advisory lanes as I described them. The active transportation alternatives that we demonstrate here, we're trying to aim for providing a safer and more welcoming space for pedestrians and cyclists. And just to note, the sidewalk option is basically a do-nothing option. So the existing sidewalks would be kept on the existing right-of-way, but we're not adding any more sidewalks. Next slide, please. Thank you. And the last group of potential alternatives are traffic calming and safety measures. Traffic calming and safety measures are a combination of mostly physical features that are intended to improve traffic use on local collector streets, alter driver behavior, and improve safety conditions for everyone who uses the street. So these are a demonstration of some of the traffic calming measures that we are considering for the sections of Lake Drive and Hedge Road. These include centerline bollards, temporary curb extensions, flashing light, restriction for traffic sign for local traffic only, educational campaign, mirrors, temporary or permanent speed humps, depending on the context of the road, signage, and increased enforcement. So in the next two slides, what we did, we tried to show how a combination of these groups of alternatives could look like for the future of Lake Drive. So next slide, please. So the first two potential alternative groups are one-way vehicle traffic with multi-use pathway, and the second one is one-way vehicle traffic with an advisory lane. Actually, it's bidirectional, so each lane can go on a different direction. All of these cross sections are prepared based on a 7-meter right-of-way, which is an average right-of-way throughout the study area. And as you can see, each lane arrangement option technically works with certain active transportation options. So these examples shows multi-use pathway and advisory lanes. Next slide, please. And the second group of potential alternatives are two-way vehicle traffic with sharrows or signed route. And the last one is one-way vehicle traffic with paved shoulders. Sharrows are basically shared lanes, and they're usually intended for the usage of cyclists and motorists. So it can be shared between both users. And the reason we tried to show sharrows here, although we're showing two-way vehicle traffic, is that sharrows draw awareness to motorists that there are likely to be more cyclists around them, and they need to drive with more caution. So I pass it back to Olivia to explain the assessment methodology.
Thanks, Halia. So we've shared a lot of different options. So there are a lot of alternatives under lane arrangements, active transportation, and traffic calming. So let's break down the assessment methodology and how we're going to carry out the assessment of the alternatives by section. So the first step is to identify all the potential alternatives. We've done this with the lane arrangements, active transportation, and traffic calming. Next, we're going to group the alternatives into cross sections, like you've seen, based on their functionality and whether or not they fit into the existing paved the existing paved roadway, and their appropriateness for each section of the study area. Following that, we are going to evaluate the groups against environmental impacts. So these are socioeconomic impacts, transportation and safety, natural and cultural heritage impacts, and cost. Then finally, we're going to select a preferred alternative for each section. And this is when we're going to come back to the public in the fall with a public open house, and we'll present the assessment, the evaluation, the technically preferred alternative for each section, and solicit feedback from the public to see what you think. All right, so I'm going to pass it to Helia for the discussion.
Awesome, thank you so much. So for this part, the ultimate goal for having this workshop was to hear from all of you. And again, thank you so much for joining this session. This is very project team to hear from the residents, road users, and whoever joined the call today. As part of this, we want to go over different sections of the study area. And honestly, we want to just hear from you to see what you think about the potential, opportunities for improvements, what you perceive as issues. So if you can please go to slide number 6, Olivia, so that people can see the map. It would be great.
Ellie, I have a quick question.
For sure, yeah.
For the discussion, the Q&A, do we want to stop recording?
Yeah, we can stop recording, Ryan, and then that way if folks want to unmute, you can just use the raise hand function, and we can unmute you, and you can just kind of let us know what you think. You can use the chat, you can use the Q&A function, and then we can zoom in on any particular portion of the corridor for you as well, and we can kind of make notes about any of the elements that you're wanting us to note on. I'll pause the recording. Okay. So I'll just close it up here and let folks know that if you haven't taken the interactive survey, our Menti tool is open, and that will be open until the end of the summer here. I can't recall if we actually set a specific date, but we'll be hosting it until at least until a week after our pop-up session, which I'm going to talk about in a moment here. So you can use your QR code scanner on your phone, or you can go to menti.com and enter the code 6683-3582. And so if you use that, you can get to that survey, or you can go directly to the town's website for this project, and you can find that link on there. Why don't we go to the next slide here, and I'll let you close it out, Olivia.
Thanks, Justin. So as I mentioned previously, there will be a lot of opportunities to stay engaged in the study, such as the feedback through the survey form. We will be doing a beach pop-up this upcoming Sunday, August 20th, at Willow Beach Park from 10 to noon, and then at De La Salle Park from 1 to 3. We'll also be doing a public information center in the fall, and the time and date will be to be determined. So thank you all for joining us today. We're really looking forward to getting this study going. Yeah, thank you for all of your insightful comments today. To stay updated, you can visit our project website listed here, and you can contact a project team member, either Ryan or Jay, listed on this slide. So before we close the meeting, maybe I'll pass it off to Ryan to do any final remarks.
Yeah, well, thank you very much once again for taking time out of your day and your evening to engage in this conversation. It's an exciting project, and I think there's great opportunities for Lake Drive moving forward. So just want to say thank you very much once again, and have a great evening. And as Olivia mentioned, there are other touch points that we're having for public engagement, including this Sunday coming up at De La Salle and Willow Park for the beach pop-ups. And also we'll have the Public Information Center, and all the information will be updated on the project webpage. And also we'll be doing social media blitz or notifications when those events will be forthcoming. So thank you very much once again, and have a great evening. And also just want to say a big thanks to WSP for leading this project and their enthusiasm for it. So thank you very much. And have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.